in that period of time we have doubled two-way trade between our two countries.
Okay, Prime Minister, it's so good to see you.
Good to be with you.
Yes, this is the first time in 9 years that a New Zealand Prime Minister has visited South Korea for a bilateral summit. And then it is also your first visit since taking office last year. So what is your purpose? What is your overall purpose on this trip?
Well, I wanted to come to Korea in my first year as being Prime Minister because it's a very important relationship. It's a long-standing relationship that goes right back to the Korean War, where we had 6,000 of New Zealand service people actually serving in that war. We have a common assessment of the threats and opportunities within our region, and we're both very much like-minded countries. And we respect sovereign states, we expect freedom of navigation, and we expect the international rules-based system to be upheld. And that's why under my government you've seen us almost double the amount of support that we're putting into surveillance of UN sanctions against North Korea. And then also we'll have a tripling of support here with UN Command to make sure that there's peace on the peninsula. This morning I had the huge privilege of going to the border, and it struck me very much that actually security and the stability that has come from security and the armistice being enforced has led to huge amounts of prosperity, not just here in South Korea, but throughout the whole of the region. And so that's why my central message has been, if you want economic growth and prosperity, you have to have security and stability as well. Well, as I said, we want to work with, there's I think 10 or 11 other countries that are ensuring that those UN sanctions are enforced, and where there are contraventions that is captured and articulated, and that's what we'll continue to do, and that's why we're putting more resources into that endeavour. But very simply for us in New Zealand, while we're a long way away from Korea, the reality is we have the same values.
Can you explain further?
Well, again, what we're going to do is triple the amount of New Zealand support that we put into the UN Command here. But I guess the broader point is that we see here on the peninsula the connection between the European Atlantic experience in Ukraine and what's happening here in the Indo-Pacific. We have a North Korea essentially sending munitions and ammunition into Russia that's being used in a war in Ukraine. And that's why our values and standing up for values and working with like-minded countries is so important to us.
And Prime Minister, you and President
We're very supportive of his global pivotal nation strategy. We see Korea playing a bigger role in the region, but also in the world. We've certainly seen also the approach to reunification and the talk about dealing with disinformation, dealing with human rights, and working again with like-minded countries. Yeah, look, I mean, there's two parts. One is in the security defence spaces, so certainly putting more support into the peninsula peace being maintained, certainly the work around North Korea and violation of UN sanctions. But the other huge opportunity is for us in the economic space as well. And so what we talked about was moving our relationship between New Zealand and Korea to a comprehensive strategic partnership next year, and also looking at upgrading our free trade agreement that's existed between our two countries. That free trade agreement has been in place for just 9 years, and in that period of time we have doubled two-way trade between our two countries, and to the benefit of both Korean people and also to the New Zealand people as well. Yes, absolutely. I mean, there are a number of potential flashpoints across the region, as we've seen with North Korea, Taiwan, the South China Sea. And again, what we want to see is a positive, constructive dialogue. We don't want to see a miscalculation around any of those tensions. And so, again, we urge all parties to engage and to use diplomacy to actually try and resolve those tensions and make sure there isn't a miscalculation.
This group more official.
Yeah, look, I mean, I chaired the IP4 this year, and again, what you have is 4 liberal democracies in Australia, New Zealand, Korea and Japan that are very much like-minded countries. As I said, the connection between what's happening in the Euro-Atlantic region and what's happening in the Indo-Pacific region, is very connected, and it comes in a connection point here through North Korea in this part of the world. And so, where there's more opportunities for us to continue to work together, I think it's important. There's a series of mini lateral, lattice work essentially across the region, And this is one of those vehicles. And so we'll continue to look at where else we can work together to in the peace and security space, given our like-mindedness and our similar values. And so there's real opportunities in food and beverage. New Zealand has the best food, the best beverage products in the world, and Korea needs to make sure there's food security in place. There's also opportunities in the people-to-people connections around tourism and around education, and the way that we work together, say, even in places like the Antarctic from a security and a relationship sense. But importantly, there's also new and emerging areas, and particularly in the area of renewable energy, because New Zealand is a country that has 87% renewable electricity, and we want to double the amount of renewable electricity in New Zealand.
Many Korean immigrants and students live in New Zealand.
We have some great examples of Korean Kiwis, Kowees as we call them, who've been incredibly successful. So whether it's Lydia Ko, or yesterday I met Paul Kim, who studied in New Zealand at high school for a long time. And so I'm very proud that there's a New Zealand contribution improving the K-pop scene here in Korea and around the world. But I think it's been fantastic. I mean, the K-wave is global now.
What is your favorite song and who is your favorite?
Well, I was very impressed by Paul Kim because he came and studied in my hometown of Christchurch, and he went to a school called St. Bede's in Christchurch, and he's obviously come back here to Korea and done very, very well. So I was very impressed. He tried to teach me some of his dance moves, and that didn't go so well. And I was also really struck by the fact that when we had our New Zealand troops here during the Korean War, there was a very famous Māori love song called Pokare Kare Ana, and that has actually been, that song for the last 50 years or so has been translated into more of a Korean folk song as well. So it was interesting, the president knew the song, but with Korean lyrics. But that melody and that song had come from New Zealand troops being based here. We're still at the very early stages. What we've said is we're open to exploring the opportunities for New Zealand and AUKUS Pillar 2, and our officials will continue to talk to the officials from the other three countries about how that may take shape and what form that may take.